This is the fourth and final video in the SAP ECC to S4HANA migration. It's kind of a big deal. So, hi, my name is Tim Rutherford. How you doing? This is video 404. This is about strategic management, change management, which is kind of a funny thing because I can't know exactly what's going on within your organization to say, this is what you should do. So this is really an overview of it. If you haven't yet, I highly recommend you watch the introductory video. It's an introduction to me, the migration. The second video is about hardware and database changes going from ECC to S4HANA. And video 3 is about the SAP interface and the user experience. These videos were not meant to be modular in nature. Each video builds on each other and they're kind of seamless. You should be watching them one after another. So, highly recommend you go back and watch those videos if you haven't. I'm also aware of the fact that there are two audiences for this video. One is students using erpsim, and if you're my student, hi, I assigned this to you. If you're just somebody looking for more information about the S4HANA migration, well, that's good. There might also be some people who just, I don't know, like the sound of my voice or browsing random YouTube videos. Hi, how you doing? If you are a student, realize you are straddling a big transformation. I highly recommend that you use the old interface, the SAP GUI, as much as you can, and of the new interface, the SAP Fiori dashboard. This is a resume item. There are not many people who have touched both of them, and you are touching the full cash-to-cash business cycle. So from nothing to something, and you can do it in the GUI, the traditional GUI, and also within Fiori. So that is a resume item. If you're someone just looking for information, well, I hope you're seeing that it's not that scary. Do realize that the migration is something that is required. The support for the GUI is ending sooner than later. The support for ECC will also end. I have not seen an end of life for that, but it's coming. If you haven't started the process, you're kind of behind. And if you need to start the process, I recommend you look for students with erpsim experience using S4HANA Fiori. See, it's a resume item. Okay, a challenge in waiting it out, of course. You don't know when you're going to be jumping in, and there are benefits to change. And that's part of what these videos are talking about, is what some of those benefits are. And this is getting into really the change management, the strategic part of making that change. So realize that if right now you're jumping in, we're kind of about here, where you still have to map the data and the processes, and you have an optional interface using SAP Fiori. You can still use the GUI. There are a number of organizations that I know of that have made the switch, and their end users are not aware of it because they're still using the SAP GUI. You might reach a point, if you're waiting too long, in which you have to start using Fiori, and that's a whole change management issue as well. And there's also that crazy thing we don't know of, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Some other benefits for switching to S4HANA from ECC. If you're doing BI reporting right now, it's maybe as simple as this, probably not as simple, but realize with S4HANA, to get your data to do analytics, it's there. You just set up the conduit, poof, you have it in real time. The other part of it is your brain is wired for visuals, and SAP Fiori, which goes right on top of S4HANA, is visual in nature. And this is the user dashboard within Fiori. It has some information on it. It has some analytics built in. You click on these and go into reports or apps, and they are also potentially visual in nature. Streamlining some processes. So this is an example within the simulation that I use, erpsim. This is how you change prices, and it's click, 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 versus the interpretation of it on the industry side for erpsim, where it's you open up an app, everything you need is right there, including cost, current inventory, and also a little bit of analytics telling you the projected number of days before you're going to run out based on historical sales. Much easier to work with. Again, these are the kinds of things you can take advantage of. Along those lines, this is the iceberg of ignorance. So we have executive level people who know that there's some issues within their company, and it works its way down where the staff really know where the issues are, right? And then it's in between. So the team managers, the people that are reporting to the executives, some of their issues are out there. The team leaders know a bit more, but really getting all the way down to the staff. So in thinking about the migration from ECC to S4HANA, you have an opportunity to right some wrongs. So somebody, however long ago when you guys made the transition to ECC, somebody said, I know, let's make this simple, intuitive user interface. People will be able to just walk up and use it. It makes sense. The reality, and this is what staff knows, is it's something like this. So why aren't you just walking up and individually going for it? Well, we're all over the place. So this is the kind of thing. You have an opportunity now to go back and involve the staff and say, what can we do to make things easier? What can we do to solve some problems? So you have that option now. So that's something to keep in mind with this. Is there's a strategic side of switching over to S/4HANA from ECC. The real-time access to analytics. Again, more people can have access to the same analytics. Two heads are better than one. Two people looking at the same thing from different perspectives. And the data analysis options are virtually unlimited. So these are the kinds of things to be looking for. SAP in the cloud. It is no secret that SAP is really pushing the cloud. They want everything to go cloud-based. SAP Analytics Cloud is the new thing. So the summer of 2019, I went to the Next Gen University Alliance workshop, and we used SAP Analytics Cloud, which is brand new for the University Alliance to be able to use it. We had special permission to be able to access it. And what I was doing was the equivalent of SAP Predictive Analytics and Lumira on my $250 Chromebook. And if you know those two different products, they require a lot of processor stuff. They require a lot of memory. They don't work on a Chromebook at all. But the cloud-based does. And I was able to do everything that other people who were using Windows-based machines were doing because it's cloud. When I'm running the simulation, both for students and also for industry, I am administrating the SAP end on my Chromebook. I'm not using Fiori, I'm using the web GUI. I'm using T-codes from my Chromebook. I do not have a Windows machine when I do this, which is amazing. So realize SAP is heading to the cloud. Now, that's something to keep in mind when you're thinking about this ERP for competitive advantage. We have the custom user interface, better and faster analytics, and the cloud options. What are you missing from a competitive advantage perspective by not making the switch? So what is it that you could be doing? So sticking with ECC, these are the excuses I've heard. We're used to it. Again, the familiar GUI is there for now. The SAP GUI is supported for now. It will not be there forever. We're going to wait it out. You might be jumping several versions. You may not have access to that familiar GUI anymore. And if you wait too long, if you rush your upgrade, it's kind of like Y2K. Will you be able to find people to support your migration? So from a change management perspective, we have two different sides to this. We need executive buy-in, and that's the most important from a change management side, right? They're the ones making the decision, and nothing happens without it. Then there's the end users, the people actually using SAP. This might be a concern with the executives, saying, well, we're used to it at this point, why are we making the change? Either way, people don't like to change. So we're moving forward, and you've got to jump in. This video is being made October 2019, and if you haven't started, you're already too late. So you need to get moving. The sooner you get started, the sooner you can do the mapping, which is required no matter when you jump in. So as of right now, the changes made from ECC to S/4HANA are largely behind the scenes. You can use the SAP GUI, and your end users maybe don't notice it. They probably don't notice a difference. From the executive buy-in perspective, it's challenging for this when the messages come from salespeople. Spend money, spend money, spend money. We just spent millions of dollars on SAP. Why should I spend more money? So it's about crafting the message towards the competitive advantage, the future add-ons. So there's also a compliance portion of this, the end of life of the documentation that's documented by SAP. If you get into the point where there's no longer support for ECC or the SAP GUI, and you have to make a security update that now makes it so your SAP doesn't work, now what? Now what do you do? We can either be insecure on our network, or we can use our ERP system. From a competitive advantage, those future add-ons. So I'm going to use a historical example here. Leading up to Y2K, many companies with legacy systems, they had a choice. They can migrate to a new platform or stick with what we have. Change the code so that it was Y2K compliant. What a number of companies did is they stuck with their AS400s. And then the web came along for sales, the retail side. The 90s lead up to it, people were skeptical. I know the person who worked at Kohl's, that got Kohl's onto the retail side. And the executives were, no, 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 no. And she pushed it. She pushed it through. And now that is one of their biggest moneymakers. So here we are in thinking about this. Going back to the 90s, looking at the 2000s, the retail side of things online. If you're using an AS400 in 2001, it's incompatible with the Oracle database doing your retail sales. How do we take online orders and put them in our AS400? That is a very real issue, and I know of companies that went out of business because leading up to Y2K, they decided to stay on the same platform and just upgrade, just change the code instead of going to a different platform. And then they went out of business because they were incapable of keeping up with the web demands. What's next? I don't know. You can't know what's next. But we know that if you're using old technology, it's not just going to be as easy as implementing that new thing. So you're probably going to have to migrate your platform to something compatible or build a bridge between the two. And that creates more issues. So it's being ready for that future piece. And again, remember, at this point you can do the ECC to S4 migration and the end users are probably not going to notice. It's how much do you have to put on top of it and have the change management aspect and dealing with that new thing. The longer you wait, the more complicated it's going to be. As far as the end user buy-in, the user experience, people get used to things and people don't like change. And that is change management. But there's something about ERP and change management, and I don't know what that is. And a number of different companies that I've worked for, I've noticed that being a thing. So here I am. I did some training for SAP itself for some fairly new users. They weren't brand new employees. It's not like it was their first day. They'd been there, some had been there for a few weeks, some a few months. But and they were all working somewhere within S4HANA. Basis or Fiori design, whatever it might be. Very few of the people that I worked with, and it was 28-ish people, I think, had used SAP ERP before. I had 2 days to work with them. The first day we went through and we emulated the ECC. So we were using the SAP GUI, we're using transaction codes. We manually worked through the production process. And it was, it's grumpy. It's difficult when you're not familiar with the system to work through it. Then we started using the simulation, using the SAP GUI, the T codes. And I kept letting them know, there's going to be a big challenge tomorrow afternoon. So it's first day, second day. In the afternoon, we're going to have a big challenge where we're going to be running the simulation. You get bragging rights if you win. So we get through that first day, and we're emulating ECC. We're using the SAP GUI and the transaction codes. The next day, it's okay, you have some familiarity with the simulation. Let's get a little bit more practice with it, getting to know that full cash-to-cash business cycle, all the integrated functions and how decisions are impacting the bottom line. And we're working through it, and we're like, okay, everybody understands it. Let's stop. Let's talk about S4HANA. And it was very similar to these 4 videos. So if you're watching them from video 1 through to here, it's very similar to what I did within here. Just kind of talking about why the change is taking place and the benefits of Fiori and all that kind of good stuff. So I had everybody log on to SAP Fiori. We finished out the simulation using Fiori so they could get familiar with it. Again, I showed them the various benefits of using the Fiori dashboard. Went to lunch. Everybody came back. It was like, okay, it's time for the big challenge. A few teams, we get into the simulation. A few teams are really fighting for first place. It was really coming down. They're all fighting for every last cent within it. The simulation ends, and they're all like, excited about the simulation. It ends, and before I do anything else, I said, okay, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to tell you the 3 possible answers, so you know how to answer. The first answer is, I'm going to ask, which interface did you use? The answers, the SAP GUI, SAP Fiori, or a combination of the 2. I asked the question, an overwhelming number of them used the GUI, like 20 used the GUI. So that, I told them, is the challenge with this migration. Now, these are all, I was clearly the oldest person in the room. Most of them were probably mid-20s, mid to late 20s. So it wasn't because they were old. It wasn't because they had years of experience using the SAP GUI and didn't want to change. Most of them, it was their first time the day before. It's not because they didn't like SAP salespeople. They work for SAP. There isn't kind of a SAP thing. And it's not because, insert reason why you think somebody might not like going to SAP Fiori. Those didn't exist. The simple fact is they got used to the SAP GUI. And that's it. They got used to the GUI. Very quickly, they got used to the GUI. And that's the kind of thing, you can't unlearn that preference. End users need to see the possibilities with the SAP Fiori. So what do you do? As described, what I did with these SAP employees is I just slammed it. Boom, here it is. Use a Fiori. And there was resistance. It's not like they fought me, but this is what I know. I'm going back to the GUI. So you want to ease into it. Allow them to use the GUI while showing the benefits of Fiori and actually create Fiori benefits. So what I found at SAP, after we talked about this a little bit more, was the people who benefited from Fiori used Fiori. And what I mean by that is the people who were viewing the reports that were inherently visual, they got a benefit out of Fiori. Changing prices, so being able to reduce the number of clicks, that was much easier in Fiori. Everyone else just stuck with the GUI because it's what they knew. So again, this is the changing prices, lots of extra clicks, having multiple screens open, looking at reports, as opposed to this, where it was just very easy to make the changes to the prices. So remember this, the iceberg of ignorance. I love this. And I love this too. These are two very, very nice visualizations to go along with this. But anyway, this is a fantastic time to go through and involve the staff. Have end user buy-in by saying, hey, we know that this is the kind of stuff that happens. I mean, the black cat, this is his life here? Orange and white? Oh, this is what's happening with staff. You get them involved and say, we thought we had this. What can we do to make sure that this doesn't happen? Get them involved, and then you tell them, we can't solve these problems with the GUI. That's not an option. How can we make your life easier? Oh, it's not the GUI. We'll use the GUI where it's best. We'll use Fiori where it's better. Get people involved. What would you like to see? That takes a lot of time. It takes time as far as number of days and weeks and months, but also a lot of time going through and getting people involved. But once they're involved, they'll be more open to making the change to Fiori. They see the benefit of it. And again, remember, there's a challenge in waiting it out. Right now, we have the optional interface. You don't have to use SAP Fiori. You still have the GUI available. What happens when it's required? What happens when cloud is required? These all require specific skills. And then you wait too long and we get into that crazy thing, just like the 90s switching over to a new platform and then all of a sudden they have to be able to do online sales and they can't. What is that crazy thing for you? Why are you waiting it out? So, can't start too early. Plenty of warning. And I know the warning has been things like buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this. It's going to reach a point where SAP is going to pull the plug on ECC, which doesn't mean it stops working, but you don't have the support anymore. And what do you do? Again, you don't want to slam it in. It's more expensive to slam it in. There's more room for errors, rushing it through, and it becomes a big change management issue versus a gradual change management issue. So again, this is video 404. Go back and watch those other videos if you haven't. An introduction, who I am, why there's pictures of Muesli, the background of the migration, talking about the hardware in the database, the user experience. So make sure you watch those videos. And if you'd like more information, again, my name is Tim Rutherford. Textbook website, thecoursewebsite.com. There's links to student and instructor resources. Find me on LinkedIn. I'll also have links to these within the description of this video. For information about the ECC to S4 migration simulation, on the academic side, it's HEC Montreal, and Baton Simulations on the industry side. And tell them Tim sent you.